Hello and welcome back to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and today I am going to show you my pile of possibilities for November. How did we get to November already? So there are many things going on, fun things going on in November. Not the least of which is the readathon that I am co-hosting together with Catherine from Read Journal Love. And we are reading nonfiction, Christian nonfiction from 4 different categories. So I will start with those in a second. But in addition to that reading challenge, there is also the Project Rating Gutenberg. I forget exactly what it's called, but Rating Project Gutenberg. Yeah, I think that's the order the words going. Rating Project Gutenberg. And that's an online resource for completely free books that are all public domain and super simple to send it to your Kindle and have easy access to those books. I suppose if you wanted to, you could print them out and have a hard copy, so to speak, but that'd be a lot of paper and ink. Anyways, that's Rating Project Gutenberg, which is, I know that Tiffany at Beautiful Minutia is hosting that, and I think there may be other people involved, which I apologize, I cannot think of at the moment, but I will look that up and make sure I have all of the details in the description box below. And then also the Historathon readathon is going on in November as well. And I know Gloria Z. Thompson is one of the hosts of that. And again, I know there are 2 other hosts, and I once again apologize at the moment, not remembering, but I will put their information in the description box so you can check out their videos and suggestions and recommendations for this reading challenge. So a lot going on, plus I have all of my regular reading challenges that I started at the beginning of this year and am still working on finishing out. So we will see what all I get to this month, but I'm very excited about it because, first of all, I love historical fiction. It's absolutely my favorite genre. And I'm also really excited about my picks for the Fall into Faith not Christian nonfiction challenge. So I'm going to start with those. First of all, the first prompt, we have 4 prompts for that, and the first prompt is surrender. And this ties in nicely with Rating Project Gutenberg because the book I chose for that topic is Absolute Surrender by Andrew Murray, who I believe he was writing in the 19th century, but could be wrong about that. Might be early 20th century. I'm not sure, but one of those. Anyway, I read a book by him quite a few years ago about prayer with Christ in the School of Prayer, and I really liked it. It was a really good book. And so I'm looking forward to reading his book on surrender, absolute surrender. And then the next category is End Times or Heaven. And I have a book, Revealing Revelation by Amir Tsarfati, which I may get to. I showed that in my announcement video, which again, I'll link to below. Because that one looks really interesting to me and I've not read it yet. But what I'm going to start with is this one, Heaven by Randy Alcorn, which is, I guess, maybe not strictly End Times because it's talking about heaven, which, I don't know. Does that fit? Does that work? I don't know, whatever. I want to read it. And so I am going to read it. So this is on my list for that category. And then the next category is service. And I had recently picked up this book by David Jeremiah called Signs of Life, which I really want to read also. And I've read one other book, I think, by him. So I'm very interested in reading this one. And it's all about practical expression of our faith as believers. So that ties in nicely with the category of service. For the category of prayer, I have Fervent by Priscilla. Somebody tell me how to pronounce her last name. Shirer. However one pronounces her last name. I am looking forward to reading this book. I think it will be a very good book. A woman's battle plan for serious, specific, and strategic prayer. I talked more about those and other recommendations that I have in my announcement video for Fall into Faith, so I won't spend any more time on those. And let's move on. So the next biggest chunk that will take up most of my reading space in November, in addition to the nonfiction, is the Historathon Reading Challenge, because it's my favorite. So I'm jumping in with both feet on that one. There are three co-hosts, and they each had 3 different prompts. And so I don't know if I will get to all of the prompts by all of them, but I came up with a list, and I'll try to do one at least from each of them through the course of the month. That shouldn't be too tricky. So first of all, oh, I do have their names. I wrote it down. Wow. Good girl, Anne. Lindsay's Little Library. She is one of the co-hosts. And one of her prompts is books by a favorite author. So I'm a little nervous about this one for 2 reasons. This is one of my favorite authors, but I had a rant recently. Yeah, I'll link to that too. About the last book that I read by her. Great writing, interesting storyline, honestly a really cool book. I just 100% disagreed with the primary themes in the book. And then this one is the second one in a series. The first one in the series, I enjoyed it, but there were aspects of it that I was like, I don't know, I wasn't really like all on board with it. And then I borrowed this one from my sister, and then I saw that she only gave it like 2 or 3 stars on Goodreads. So I do want to read it, because I want to read everything by this author. Really keeping you in suspense here. But I'm honestly not fully hopeful that I'm going to love it. So we'll see. And that is The Belle of Belgrave Square by Mimi Matthews. So normally I love her books. I've been a little bit disappointed in the past couple, so we'll see how I like this one. Okay, so here is part of the synopsis. For Julia, an incurable romantic cursed with crippling social anxiety, navigating a London ballroom is absolute torture. The only time Julia feels any degree of confidence is when she's on her horse. Unfortunately, a young lady can't spend the whole of her life in the saddle. So Julia makes an impetuous decision to take her future by the reins. See what they did there? She proposes to Captain Blunt. Interesting storyline for a Victorian miss. So that one is on my list by a favorite author of mine. We'll see what happens and how it goes. And that is set in the Victorian times in London. The next prompt by Lindsay's Little Library is your favorite time period, which for me, super easy. That's Regency. I love books set in Regency times. And I have a whole video with recommendations of all kinds of Regency novels, if you want to see that. One that I've not read, but has been recommended to me by many people. And I have a Kindle copy of it, but my sister let me borrow her print copy. And that is Lakeshire Park by Megan Walker. And this is part of the Proper Romance imprint by Shadow Mountain. So I have read others by this collection, different authors, but not this particular author. Megan Walker will be new to me. So, but I have enjoyed the other ones that I've read, like Edenbrook, for example, by Julian Donaldson, is published by them. So this one says, Amelia Moore wants only one thing: to secure the future happiness of her younger sister, Clara. With their stepfather's looming death, the 2 sisters will soon be on their own, without family, a home, or a penny to their names. When an invitation arrives to join a house party at Lakeshire Park, house parties are fun, Amelia grasps at the chance. If she can encourage a match between Clara and their host, Sir Ronald, then at least her sister will be taken care of. So that is Lakeshire Park by Megan Walker. And then the third prompt from Lindsay's Little Library is a book that was recommended by a favorite. So by a friend or a fellow booktuber, etc. And I went with one that I have on my Kindle, but I've not read it yet. And it's technically a dual timeline, so I hope that counts. It does have a historical timeline in it. And it was, I think 2 of my sisters, or at least one of them, have read it and gave it 4 or 5 stars. So I don't specifically remember discussing it with them, but it's one that they enjoyed and gave a good review on Goodreads. So I'm going to read, did I say what it was yet? I don't think so. The Orchard House by Heidi Chiavaroli, which has a dual timeline. The first one is like 2000 something, like more or less modern day. And then the other one is, the other timeline is during Louisa May Alcott's time period. And it is set in, at the Alcott home in Massachusetts. Yes, that is the name of the state. And then on the middle shelf is also one of the hosts, and she had 3 prompts as well. Her first one was a book with a color in the title. And I chose one that has been on my want to read list for a while, but I don't have an actual copy of it. And I'm hoping I'll be able to get it from the library. But actually, I think that my sister might have it, so I'll ask her if I can borrow it from her. Anyway, it's called A Dress of Violet Taffeta by Tessa Arlen. And it's set either in the Victorian times or like early 1900s, like Edwardian maybe. And it's about a woman who, it's based on a true story, I believe, a woman who creates like a whole fashion line and builds a whole industry or whatever with her clothing designs. And there's also like marriage struggles she's trying to overcome and things like that, if I remember correctly. So that one is an intriguing storyline, and violet, of course, is the color in the title. Then we have a book with 3 words in the title, and I picked Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker, and I have had this on my shelf for a while. I read, oh, what was that one called? Another one by her, something about numbers and enchanted, an enchantress of numbers. It was set in England in the Regency into Victorian era, and it was about the woman who helped invent the first computer, or what is considered the first computer in the 19th century. Fascinating book. It's written like it's a biographical novel, kind of, which is similar to this one. And it was maybe a little bit like slow and heavy on details, or so it took me a while to read through it, but I really enjoyed it. And I just, the people and that story, and they were all real people, were so fascinating to me. And Lord Byron plays a big, Lord something. Ooh, I forget how his title and his name goes. But anyways, Byron, the poet, he plays a large part in that story as well. So very interesting. He was a very strange person, by the way. Anyway, so this one, Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker. Look at this beautiful cover and how it has like that flap there. Lovely. It says, in a life that spanned nearly a century and witnessed some of the most momentous events in American history, Elizabeth Hobbs Keckley was born a slave. A gifted seamstress, she earned her freedom by the skill of her needle and won the friendship of First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln by her devotion. A sweeping historical novel, Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker illuminates the extraordinary relationship the 2 women shared, beginning in the hallowed halls of the White House during the trials of the Civil War and enduring almost, but not quite, to the end of Mrs. Lincoln's days. So that will be interesting. This past summer, well, kind of like our last hurrah before school started, we went into DC and we went to Ford's Theater where Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, and also the house across the street where he ended up passing away. And anyway, it was very interesting and made me think of this book and think that I should pick it up and actually read it, but I didn't, so I should. All right, and then the third one by On the Middle Shelf is a book that has the word book in the actual title. And one that has been on my list to read for a while, which I know I can get it from Hoopla, but I think also my sister has one. I can borrow it from her. Is called The Last Bookshop in London by Madeline, and I cannot read my scribble. Martin? I don't know. I'll put a picture up. So that one is set during World War II, I'm pretty sure, and is about the last bookshop in London. So I am looking forward to reading that one. Anything about a bookshop sounds good to me. Then Gloria Z. Thompson is the co-host that I remember, and she also has 3 prompts. Her first one is a book set in a place that you have visited or want to visit. And this particular book that I am choosing ticks both of those categories. I have visited it, but it's been many years. I was a child when we went, like maybe 9, 10, 11 years old. And I really want to go again. And that is Prince Edward Island. And the book is Marilla of Green Gables by Sarah McCoy. And it's like the backstory of Marilla of Green Gables, you know, the one that adopted Anne, etc. So ever since I heard about that book, I've been very curious to read it. It's gotten some good reviews, so I would really love to get to that one. I also would really love to get to Prince Edward Island. So if anybody can arrange that for me, that'd be awesome. Thanks. And then the next category she has is a 5-star prediction. And for that one, I went with The All-American by Susie Finkbeiner. I have read most of her books. I've not read all of them, but I've read most of her books, and almost everyone has been a 5-star for me, or pretty close to it. They're just really good, and they're books that kind of stick with you. So The All-American is not about a subject that would normally interest me or appeal to me, but because it's Susie Finkbeiner, I'm totally going to read it. And it's about the brief time period when there was a women's baseball league, I believe, which is the movie A League of Their Own is also about that, which I enjoyed that movie, you know, years ago when it came out. But I've never really read or learned anything more about that particular aspect of history. So that could be interesting. But also it's Susie Finkbeiner, so I think I will love it, and I think it will be 5 stars. And then the last one, the last category, is a book that is based on a true story. And this one I actually started, but I had too much else going on in my reading life and I didn't finish it. Also, I kind of like know what's going to happen or whatever, but I mean, sort of, not really, but anyway. So I didn't finish it, but I really do want to read it because the whole concept really intrigues me. So the book is The Hatbox Baby by Carrie Brown, and I don't know that she wrote too many other books besides this one, or if they're even available. This one, I don't think it's in print. I got a used copy of it. It was a little bit hard to find. But the reason I hunted it down was because of the story that it's based on. So back in the early 20th century, so in the time of the when world fairs were very popular and everybody wanted to see the latest medical advances and technological advances, and just prior, I think, to you know, the Roaring '20s and the Great Depression era, maybe even going into them, when, you know, going to the carnivals and the fairs was like really big thing. There was a man who would, one of his exhibit at these world fairs, and I don't know what else they were called, exhibitions that were all around the country, and he even went to Europe, I believe. He was not a doctor. He kind of styled himself as a doctor, but he wasn't actually a doctor. But he somehow found out about some success that some European gentlemen had. I'm not sure if they were doctors either, but maybe scientists or whatever. You know, they had experimented with methods of saving the life of a baby who was born prematurely by using these kind of like, you know, incubator sort of things. And I can't remember now the reasons why, but at the time, the medical community was kind of poo-pooing it, but he saw the value in it. And also, I think, you know, was a bit of an entrepreneur, and so saw how he could make a living for himself while accomplishing some good in the world. Best of both worlds, right? So he devised, or perhaps there's a chance that he stole the design for like an incubator type thing for babies. And he would set up shop in these world fairs and these exhibits, and people would bring the prematurely born babies, and he had a whole team of people who took care of them and had very specific, like it wasn't just like, give me your baby and I'm gonna make a lot of money off of them. He genuinely cared about the babies. His whole team did. And he had very precise, specific methods of treating them, of dealing with them, besides just incubating them. And their whole operation was extremely sanitary. That was very important to him. And everything he did was honestly for the health of the babies. And he saved so many lives of premature babies, and kind of everything that, not everything, but a lot of neonatal care for like premature babies, it kind of flows out of the work that he did, even though he wasn't really a medical doctor or even a scientist. So just a fascinating story to me. And people would literally pay money to go and see the little babies in the incubators. And it was one of the highlights of the fairs and exhibitions. So really random, very cool. One of those things that makes you scratch your head and go, weird. People were weird back then. Then I wonder what 100 years from now, people are going to look back at us and say, you were weird. That was so weird. Why did you do that? But anyways, so the actual story in this book, here's the blurb. At the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, a man races through the crowd carrying a hat box. Inside it is his son, a premature baby whose only hope for survival may be Dr. Leo Hoffman, which was not the guy's name. So this is a fictional character based on, I think Dr. Cooney was his actual name, whose infantorium holds tiny, frail patients in primitive incubators, drawing crowds of gawkers along with the elephants and the firewalkers and the fan dancer in the next tent. Thus begins award-winning author Carrie Brown's fascinating, lyrically written tale, an epic story about misfits and makeshift families, fragile lives and unpredictable loves, and the busy, dizzying carnival that houses them all. I'm looking forward to finishing that one. So, as for Rating Project Gutenberg, again, Absolute Surrender by Andrew Murray is part of my plan. I have 2 books that I had downloaded from Victober, for Victober from there, and I started them and I would like to finish them, so I'm adding them to the pile. And the one is East Lynne, and the other is A Hard Night's Work. And I talked about them extensively in a tri-chapter tag video maybe about a month ago or a little bit less. So I will link back to that one. Doing a lot of linking here. And one is by Elizabeth Gaskell, and one is by Mrs. Henry Wood, I think was her name. So then I have some other ongoing challenges that I have been doing since the beginning of the year. One is Read Your Shelf by Chantel Reads All Day. And the category for November is to read a book from a different time period than the one you read in October. And so, of course, in October, I was reading all Victorian set era books. So basically, any of these Historathon books will work as long as they're not set in Victorian times, which some of them are. So the ones that could qualify are Lakeshire Park by Megan Walker, or The Last Bookshop in London, or Marilla of Green Gables, or The All-American, or The Hatbox Baby. So any of those, if I read them, will tick that box. So I'm doubling up on that. And then in the Facebook book club, I have to say that so carefully, What the Dickens, they are reading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for November. But here's my thing. Like, I've read it, and I liked it, and I like C.S. Lewis. I have read a lot of C.S. Lewis's books, and I have liked all of them that I have read. And I know it's a very good book, and it's a very good book. But I just don't love fantasy. I just don't. And I enjoyed it when I read it before, but I've never thought, oh, that's when I want to pick up and read again, which I know, I'm sorry, it's blasphemous, but it's true also. So that's what they're reading. And initially I was like, I'll just pass on that one, because they very often read books that I have read like recently within the past couple of years. Somehow, for some reason, that seems to keep happening. So I will skip them on occasion when that happens, or if they pick like a really long one that I just don't have time for. But I don't know, I was kind of like, maybe this is one I'll just skip. Although it has been some years since I read it, so it's due for a reread. But then the Tea and Ink Society read the Classics Challenge. The prompt for November is a classic fantasy novel. And so I could kill two birds with one stone again. And it's worthwhile. So I may read it. It kind of depends on how things go. I may just say that Fantastes, which I read about a month ago, fits in that category, and put that one in for the year instead of reading an additional one. But we'll see. We'll kind of see how the month goes. I have a teacher work day, and then I have a parent-teacher conference day, which I'm also off. And then we have the whole entire week off for Thanksgiving. So I do have extra time this month, that I should be able to squeeze in some reading. So I should be able to read as much as I want to this month. So there's a good chance I will get to it. It depends on if I'm in the mood for it or not, if the mood strikes me. Right now, not super feeling it, but I'm also not dead set against it. So anyways, we'll find out what happens. All right, that is my plan for November, my pile of possibilities. I'm looking forward to it. There are a lot of good books on there, and I'm excited to knock some off of my shelf, because a lot of these books have been sitting on my shelf or in my Kindle queue for a while and waiting for me to read them. So I will be glad to read them, and we will see how it goes. So enjoy this last day of October, and have a wonderful November, and here's to all of our November reads.